Hi, I'm Mike Kelly, and I'm the CEO of Techtel Corporation. We're a market research firm that has been doing work for about 30 years in the area of technology and B2B. And over the past 6 months or so, we and our partners, marketing operations partners, have been talking to a lot of senior marketing people and marketing and their staffs, marketing operations people and so forth, and talking to them about what are the problems in marketing, what are you faced with, what are the big issues, the pain points. We've come up with a set of 3 things. One of them is that the concern is that we're not able to get from, we have strategies, but we're not able to get them executed as well as we'd like to. We look at why that happens, and we realize that a lot of times it's because we can't get people working together effectively, either within the groups or with the groups and outside the groups, outside of marketing, or even with customers. And as a result, we're faced with issues of credibility with our peers inside the company. We now know that these things are fairly common across not only marketing, but a lot of other areas. And so the questions become, how do you get around these kinds of things? Is there some kind of an approach that's going to be more likely to be helpful and get at these basic problems more than others? So when I read The Power of Professionalism by Bill Wiersma, who is with us today and we're going to interview, I saw, with these problems in mind, I said, this fills the gap. This, to me, looks like the way of being able to solve these big, basic, hairy problems, that CMOs and marketing people are faced with, in terms of things which are very specific ways of coming up with of answers and addressing these issues, and it's going to be something which can be done, and I get very excited about it. So in talking to Bill today, what we want to do is I want to represent you, the thinking that we've heard from you, and I want to basically challenge him to tell us more about how professionalism might help us. After all, everybody says that they're professionals now. If you go and take a look at the LinkedIn groups, if you take a look at how people talk to each other, we are PR professionals, we are marketing professionals. We never refer to ourselves in anything as marketing amateurs. Hi, we're a group of marketing amateurs. That doesn't happen. We're all professionals. And so if professionalism has been around, how is that going to help us to change things? What's got to change there?
I've always been fascinated with how professionals think. And at the core is a premise that when you look at successful organizations, successful people, they tend to be really professional in what they do. And I don't mean just technically, from nuts and bolts if you're a mechanic to expert advertising if you're in marketing. I mean that they have a series of ways that they think about the world, and they show up in a very powerful way. And so I was curious, how do these people think? How is it that people trust them? Not only from a technical point of view, do they know what they're doing, to how do they work with others, and you mentioned some of these silo problems and that type of thing. And what I outline in the book is that I've identified 7 mindsets that these people that I've identified, they just kind of naturally show up that way. We're only going to talk about 2 of the mindsets today. But what I found is that these professionals have a common way of thinking. And it doesn't matter whether you're at the top of the organization or at the bottom. It doesn't matter whether you're doing hard skills, soft skills, it doesn't really matter, but they tend to show up this way. So for instance, let's talk about the top 2, the first 2 of the mindsets. The first mindset is that professionals have a bias for results. Let's think about that for a minute.
As opposed to bias for doing?
For action.
Action.
Okay. Yeah, action-oriented. You see a lot of value statements in an organization. We have a bias for action. Well, that's fine, but if it's not focused action, it's not necessarily going to be productive.
Okay.
You want to get the right results, and you want to get them the right way. Absolutely the right results. So I know that you and I have we've had side conversations about some of the challenges in marketing for a long time. The credibility issue that the senior level, the CEO, the president, has with some of the marketing functions and folks. So I'm going to guess that if you were to ask the marketing folks, what are the results I'm responsible for and accountable for, you'd get one set of responses. And I think if that same question were asked at the president or the CEO level, what is marketing responsible for in terms of results? I suspect there would be a gap there. And I think that the gap that would be clear would be is that the CEO at the president level sees and wants a greater depth of results for marketing than what they've been getting in the past. I think that they would generally respond is that they want to know for the marketing investment that they make, what am I getting? And with some assurity, with some confidence. And so I'm guessing from our conversations that that's probably the case. So if that's the way that for me as a professional to show up, and I'm in the marketing function, that would be a huge revelation for me. I don't know if it's true in all cases, but I suspect it's true probably in many, in light of what you've shared with me in our earlier discussions. So that would be one of the things that I would, if I was in that marketing function, CMO or otherwise, I'd really want to be taking a look at that, is to say, what are the results that my officer expects me to produce with confidence, and how do I see it and correct that gap right away?
Okay, so now if I was to just put a framework around that, most of the people who are watching this are going to be senior marketing people. They're going to be the CMO, the most senior person in marketing, or they're going to be maybe their direct reports, the marketing operations person or the head of advertising, such like Marcon. They are going to be listening to what you've said, and they're saying, okay, you've said that in addition to talking about what they are doing at the level that they're talking about, they also have to pay attention to, well, what's the thinking of the people who have to determine the greater picture. The bigger picture here is what the organization is going to do, the business organization. There's a lot of talk in marketing about, meeting the needs of the business organization, the business objectives and so forth. So they're very much aware of that.
Right.
And so we say this group of people, the senior marketing people, you're saying first thing that they've got to do is stop talking about what they're doing and what they think. In other words, if they're saying, well, we are setting up this objective and we are not able to achieve it, don't start there. Start instead by saying, well, wait a minute, let's go outside and find out what is expected of us to make sure that we're going to set the right goal in mind, be where we want to be is going to be not our idea of be, but their idea of be. Is that a correct way of thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I would be looking very seriously at finding out what the expectations really are. My suspicion is that there's a difference in expectations between what the sponsors of that organization are and what what their expectations are. And I would try to close that gap as quickly as possible. And I think, Mike, what you'll see is that from a CEO, president level, is that they're expecting more than they're getting. And I think that in an ideal world, they would want marketing to be just an absolute integral piece of the business puzzle, meaning that they help drive strategy, that they help drive policy, that they help drive priorities and make them a real integral part of the business. I think I've also heard you say to me is that some CMOs and the marketing functions struggle with getting a seat at the table and being a real integral part of the business. And if they don't have a seat at the table, it's probably because of these gaps that we're talking about. And by the way, this is not unique to marketing. You can have the same conversations in HR, for example. You hear the same thing from HR people. They want a seat at the table. Well, probably the reason they don't have a seat at the table is because the value that they're bringing isn't quite to the level where either their president or their CEO wants them to be.